Over the Line Extra, your weekly Galway GAA podcast with Ollie Turner and Sean Walsh.
Well, you're very welcome to the next edition of the Over the Line Extra podcast programme, and I'm delighted to say that we have two very interesting topics. Later on in the programme, Ollie Turner will be speaking to Kieran Fitzgerald in relation to his football career. But now we're going to talk about something that has certainly whet the appetite in the last few weeks, and that is the revamp that's proposed for the Galway Senior and Intermediate Hurling Championship, and indeed all of the Galway various grades. To put it very succinctly, Croke Park have imposed a motion that really insists now that counties have to have 16 team championships. In Galway, in Senior A and Senior B, at the minute we have 24 clubs. In the intermediate in 2021 we had 16. That effectively means, by my reckoning, that 8 senior teams need to go to the intermediate championship. Probably Senior B needs to go, and 8 teams need to go from intermediate then down to junior, because the 8 teams have come down on top of them. That's it in a nutshell. The opposition has galvanised itself, and I'm delighted that we have 3 representatives from 3 different clubs here to chat with us this afternoon on it. Francis Keane from Mullagh and Damien Howe from Meelick Eyrecourt join us in studio, and Johnny Kelly from Portumna joins us on the phone line. Francis, I put it to you first. This hasn't gone down well, to put it simply, I think.
That's right, Sean. I suppose we got notification of this officially on the 20th of January that we were going to have looks like a 16-team senior championship for this year, and I suppose a couple of lads just met and discussed it, and we felt that really the clubs of our area and surrounding areas should probably speak about it more and get some conversation going on the matter. So after 2 meetings, I suppose the clubs have taken it on now, and the officers and their committees have taken it, and they have issued statements, and they have organised another meeting for Mullagh on Thursday night to discuss it further, where all the hurling clubs in the county and the officers of the county board are invited. So the core of the matter really is that we believe that the Galway GAA should look for a deviation on Rule 6.21 because we don't believe it has anything to do with Galway hurling.
That's the rule that looks for 16-team championships.
That's it, yeah. We just look for a deviation. We believe that the introduction of the split season has eliminated any issues there was with the rolling out of the championship. And if you look at motion 13, there's kind of a couple of key wordings in it. The first one is the word streamline. The second one is practical fixture schedule. And with the split season, Galway GAA now has 20 weekends to roll out their championships, hurling and football. That leaves 10 hurling, 10 football. So from a Galway hurling point of view, they have to roll out a championship that fits into 10 weekends. So as it is at the moment with 24 teams, you can do that in 8 or 9 rounds. So there's no issues. So we believe that the motion was brought in because some counties were getting caught with provincial fixtures towards the end, in the Leinster and Munster championships in particular. The Galway Senior Hurling Championship winners don't play in a provincial championship. They go straight through to the All-Ireland semi-final. So we have extra time. So all I know is from speaking to our players and being involved with teams for many years, that all players want to do is play championship games. They want to play games right time of the year, and they want to have a proper championship. So that means they need to have maybe 5 or 6 games in the rounds, have a quarter-final or preliminary quarter-final, depending on how many teams you want to come out, a semi-final and a final. So every adult player out there is guaranteed at least 5 or 6 proper championship games, and if they progress, they get more. Some of them, unfortunately, will be dragged into relegation. They get more games, and that's what our players want, and that's what we should do.
Damien, you feel though that this has major implications for the clubs, effectively, with, I suppose, standards really being the key word here, isn't it?
Yeah, Sean, I think part of when this originally came, and as Frank has said, this was started the first we became aware this was on the 20th, and that in itself set alarm bells to say that there was a response time, I think at the time was put down for 15 days. Now that has been extended somewhat. Well, it's twofold on it. Once we had looked at the mandate that has come, and Frank has outlined there that the mandate from Croke Park and the wording streamlining. But what is concerning for us is that there was a proposal created by our own county, and it's going to have quite an effect, I believe, on firstly the 8 clubs that are going to be demoted down to intermediates, which brings in part that if you do drop down to intermediate, and I'm speaking personally here, I've been said that right through a lot of my adult playing career, we actually moved up between senior and intermediate, and there's stark differences. I think overall that will have an impact on the standards, because every time you step back in a grade, the standard ultimately, that's the standard, that's the level you'll find. That's not good promotion overall for counties, and I would take that as in getting the opportunity to maybe play for inter-county teams, etc. You're not lifting the standards within the grade, and you're putting more teams back down. Then we have the other issue, I suppose, regarding the area that we are coming from. We're seeing that we don't have dual game, so hurling is predominantly the game played
in the East.
East. But this impact is going to have, this can impact any team. This isn't just going to be, just in our region, we've seen it and looked at the senior relegations over the last number of years. There has been a few East Galway clubs. That comes back into maybe dwindling numbers. That's a whole different conversation.
Yeah, which is an intertwined argument, with numbers,
I would say overall, I would look at the retention of players going forward. If you take senior teams, particularly 8 of them coming down, the difficulty that those clubs will have in maintaining an interest from those players to keep coming down to play in that competition does for somebody in our club in Meelick Eyrecourt who, each year, even despite the fact that we haven't won it for a quarter of a century, we believe every year setting out our stall that we are going to be thereabouts. So you have to have that belief when you set out.
Would it be fair to say that now, this year, you would be looking, say, at Ballinderreen after they came down this year, we'd say, as one of the teams that you would have to look at? Now you're going to say to me, I'm going to have to look at 7 more with Ballinderreen next year whenever this comes into play coming down.
I think absolutely, and despite, say, from a management point where you're saying what we have to look at, I would even take it up from the point of a player. Because typically what we see in these areas as well, rural areas, is that a lot of our players are living in the larger urban areas or cities. Yeah. So there, say, if we have, say, 70% of our players are coming from there.
Commuting
Commuting, the appetite for that first and foremost. And then you're playing where there's a little bit of, what are we going to achieve here? We're just going to sit in the middle or try and avoid relegation from that grade. So that ultimately is the fear that they will fall back down to another grade, which is a lower level grade. I don't see this overall. This proposal that we've seen is ultimately a demotion. Now, it might be aiming to get to 16 elite teams or 16 teams up to senior.
And that will be put to you, like, will it improve your overall standard? I'm sure that's going to be an argument that's going to be put. And I mean, there's arguments for and against, but we don't believe that's something that should be happening in our county. And we've just as Frank has outlined there, if you look at the typical teams or counties we've seen, it is Tipperary, Cork and Galway. Where we are the exception rather than the rule here is that we don't have a provincial championship. Now, there can be argued that we do in intermediate, but we don't have in senior. So we're not holding up where we are. I most certainly believe it's a streamlined club scene for us. And I'd even go as far as to say, looking back over the years where we've seen from Castlegar, we went on to Kiltormer in '92. You've had Sarsfields follow two in a row. You've had Athenry had 3 All-Ireland successes. You've had Clarenbridge. You've had Portumna with 4 All-Ireland successes. You've had St Thomas's. So in the last 30 years, we've probably taken a third of the All-Ireland. So what was so wrong that we need to fix right now? And I think the short term of it would be that we'd say, okay, make it a better championship. But the long-term effect this is going to have on these clubs that will go down, and if we work on the 1 up, 1 down scenario, it's going to be very difficult.
It's going to be extremely difficult. Now, people can say there's a huge amount of pride around senior status in the club. There's a huge amount of every year that we're in. It's like
and it is the one thing that will stir a GA club, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Status.
Well, they've earned that right to play there. And so I don't think somebody making one clean swoop and all of a sudden 8 teams find themselves. And for many reasons, you might have an event, you could be injury prone that year, you might have certain things that happened, you might have players, because I'm hearing the whole pile of thing about J1 visas and players looking to get out.
There'll be a lot going this year, lads,
and suddenly you're left and you find yourself that you're struggling for numbers, and through events out of your own control, you find that all of a sudden that you're down and you're struggling to maintain that standard and you're dropped. But you're dropped not that you got the fair chance of going down to the relegation fight, you're just gone on one clean swoop, that you didn't qualify into maybe a quarter final out of that competition. So I think overall we need to sit down, we need to have representation from our county board to sit and have an open discussion about this. And, we're not by any means against change, but only change if it's for the betterment of the game, we believe, and for our parishes and for our people. Because right now, and I've mentioned it to you previously, Sean, like at the very, very cornerstone of our communities right now is the GA pitch. Club, and if that's taken, or if that somewhat is, there's a little bit of well, we don't have a chance, so why do we bother? And there will be a natural fall off of that. I would suggest that we have got to look at it in terms of trying to maintain that sense of community. And as I mentioned, that's very, very important to us right now. It's critical to us.
Johnny Kelly, I suppose you were part of the wonderful success story with Portumna. You've seen now in recent years, particularly in your area, and I know that the numbers, the lack in numbers, I mean, I was frightened to think or to hear some of the numbers going into some of the national schools in East Galway, which, as Damien said, is another factor, but it is entwined with it. This is a big move, isn't it?
It is indeed. I think, yeah, it's probably two separate debates there, really.
Yeah,
like, I mean, rural depopulation is probably separate to this move, and there's very little we can do about that. But just on this, like, I mean, it just seems like that we need more meaningful debate before we jump into this. Like, I would be obviously I was involved in Tipperary there for a number of years at club level, like, and they've have a Tipperary, they have a 16-team championship, but they also retain a link to the divisions as well down there, because like they do realise, like, after a couple of years in this 16-team format, that there are issues with it going around, that there isn't enough of games, taking place. Like, so 4 groups of 4, it's not really enough to, the ratio between training and games isn't enough there at that level. So they've fought hard to retain the link to the divisions in Tipperary. So that's just an example of it, how it actually played out. But from my point of view, look, I do believe that 24 senior teams is probably too much in our county, but in one fell swoop or in 1 year to reduce it by 8, like, that's really a 33% cut in 1 year. So in any walk of life, like when you mention that, it certainly it ring alarm bells start to ring straight away. Again, much like Francis, what he spoke about there, like, you'd wonder what the reasons for this is. Like, you can see, obviously, it was part of, as I call it, a COVID Congress where Motion 13 came in, but I don't think there had been enough discussion around that at either provincial or county level or even national level before it actually was passed. It's in, but the reasons for it seems to be that counties are ready for a provincial campaign, and at senior level, we don't have a provincial campaign to be ready for in Galway. So, which is more important? Do we look after our internal affairs, or do we have a little bit more debate about this before we move further? And I think to draw on the hurling board chairman's comments from last year is important too. Like Paul, and who's doing a brilliant job, and as everyone within the county board. But like at the time, they indicated like that all counties should, be in control of their own destiny, and that would be from a financial point of view as well, but also a social point of view. So, we seem to be dictated a little bit too by Croke Park without actually understanding the gravity of the situation at ground level. So, I think there's much more debate needed about this, like, and I think it's something that we can't jump into without knowing the full effects of it, because once it happens, it's probably too late to return to where we were.
Yeah, Johnny, and I suppose that's where we're getting to. I mean, is the solution? Look, at bottom line is this is in, right? I presume Paul Bellew, Claude Gagan, Jamie McGrath right now are saying we have to follow the Croke Park guideline here. But if there was, and I won't even use the word solution, but what do you guys see as a possible solution? Is the solution a now more meaningful debate?
Well, yes, but we can look for a deviation straight away. We're entitled to do that. And we also believe that... and
that's likely to be a year, is it? Or is
no,
it?
You can look for it now for this year's championship.
Okay, yeah.
So we believe that's the first process,
Yeah.
and we'd love to speak with the board on that and sit down and let all the clubs, there's over 40 hurling clubs in the county, and they should all be involved in it. Second thing we need to do is we need to organise ourselves to put a motion to Congress and get Rule 6.21 changed. It's as simple as that. It's a bad rule. It has to be changed, and I think if there's proper debate, as Johnny said, around it, I think people's minds will change and their opinion will change, and then their votes will change. So I believe that's the first step. As we said earlier, look at the split season. we have now, and that was a COVID. COVID brought that in and has solved a lot of problems for the GA, because I think this would have been years away unless COVID came in. So now we have 20 weekends, 10 football, 10 hurling approximately. We'll play our games, the lads want to hurl, and that's why we're here, that's why we're involved in our clubs. It's not for training, it's not for challenge matches, it's for championship matches.
And you mentioned a meeting on Thursday night then of the clubs. Is this a kind of come to a forum to discuss this? Is discussion the immediate solution, Damien, that you're looking for almost?
Yeah, I believe so. And I think, we want involvement as well from every club. Initially, this would have been set out that we reached out to maybe the East Galway clubs, but we quickly identified that this needs to go to all the clubs, because I can't say that anybody is going to be immune to the effect of this. And the important part for us as well is to get clarity and understanding. So we really are reaching out to the county boards that we would like to have somebody attend the meeting, and maybe they can give us greater clarity on what is intended to happen, or what is the overall benefits of this. Because as I said, many will look at the model of 16 senior teams as it's bringing up, but it is creating elitism. I'm going to mention that what was also wrong with our championship, if we look at the end result of where we've produced so many All-Ireland winning teams, and
I suppose the argument will be that as we go down the ranks, that maybe we'll say the Saltine Lochnacarras and that, went to play Mooncoin recently, but they may not be the team that could have gone if this was a 16-team championship. I presume I'm playing devil's advocate there in terms of that.
Yeah, Sean, and it was something that came up at our meetings. Would you rather be a senior B team, or would you rather, win an All-Ireland intermediate?
Yeah.
And every one of the lads from the intermediate says we want to be senior, like.
Yeah.
And in Galway, that's the perception out there, as far as I can see, that their provincial championship doesn't hold the same importance maybe as it does in Leinster or Munster or Ulster. But in Connacht, it's all about the Holy Grail really is get to senior. And when you're senior, then you hang on to it for as long as you can. And the only way you should be relegated out of it is if you lose your match. And if you lose your match, then you deserve to go down. But you just can't be relegated by some administrator in Croke Park and a third of our teams are gone overnight. That just can't happen.
Johnny, we might leave the last word to you. You mentioned your Tipperary involvement. You've been there, but you're also involved with Offaly at the minute. Is the same debate happening in those counties?
No, not. Well, there is a debate going on in Tipperary for a number of years on which best way to run their championship, and it's been heated enough. But they've, I suppose, something similar to what we're at here. They've held on to their divisional link, with tight fists, because it does affect the number of games they play down there. And there is a bit of debate about losing that link between the divisions in Tip and the county championship, but. No matter how heated it gets, it's always knocked back, because it's part of the tradition down there, and it's very valuable to them. In Offaly, it really is a lack of clubs, and you could draw comparisons that the less clubs you have at senior, it's more difficult then to create a better hurler or a better they have less games to play in, or there's less quality of games. So that is certainly a line that you could draw and link, that we don't need to drop down straight away to 16 teams. It is difficult. I think really this seems to be an East Galway thing at the moment, but it's not really. Obviously, this is going to affect all clubs right across Galway, and it's fair play to the clubs in Galway. They're making a stand, and and we're part of that as well. So. It just, you don't want to draw comparisons, but it's a little bit of a diktat, from a sort of an absentee landlord. We feel aggrieved that something at national level really is filters down and affects those on the ground here. And I think we're right to call for more debate and look for a deviation at this moment in time, so that we can understand the consequences of it more than anything else.
Well, if that's where the meeting is next Thursday night, then where is it on, Frank?
That's right. Mullagh. It's on the Mullagh Community Centre. We've invited all the hurling clubs in the county.
That's Thursday now. This week.
Thursday coming. Yeah. And we invited a representation from the county board as well. So the purpose of the meeting is just to debate. Let every club come and have their say in it. And I know there's a county hurling board committee meeting scheduled for the following week. So maybe we'll have some sort of a consensus going into the meeting that there's 2 or 3 proposals on the table. Maybe we can discuss them further, but I don't think it can be all solved at one meeting. It'll take a few meetings to get this sorted. And the main thing is, we need to work with the county board and the hurling board to solve this. We won't be able to do it on our own, and we all work together and get it sorted. That's the main issue.
Francis Keane, Damien Howe and Johnny Kelly, thanks for talking to us. I think it's something that's going to cause a lot more debate, certainly, and we're delighted to hear your thoughts on the Over the Line Extra podcast. Next up though, Ollie Turner will talk to Corofin and Galway football legend Kieran Fitzgerald.
So this week on Over the Line, we're going to be chatting with Kieran Fitzgerald, and of course this Thursday on TG Car, the latest Eyrecourt instalment features Fitzy. I mean, you must be thrilled. It's a great honour because it's such a short list of Galway footballers that have appeared on Eyrecourt so far.
Yeah, hi Ollie. Yeah, look, when I got the call, I was surprised, to be honest with you. But look, it's a great privilege. It was an opportunity, to tell your story, and I suppose the way the Eyrecourt has been going the last few years, the series, it's probably more about the background of the player, and it digs a little bit deeper into what makes these players tick or whatever. So yeah, look, it was probably it was an eye opener when I saw what it actually took to produce the whole lot. But as I say, I'm hugely honoured and privileged that the guys in Limerick gave me the opportunity to tell the story.
You have seen it, as have your teammates from Corofin as well. So you had kind of like a private screening of it. So what can we expect?
We had a lovely night in Canavan's on Friday night with a lot of the players and club, and they got an opportunity to have a look at it, and I think it went down well. But look, it goes through, my years in playing with Galway, and there were great years playing with some super players, and was fortunate enough to have a little bit of success there. And then I suppose there was a few barren years of Galway as well, and it kind of goes through the ins and outs of that, and sadly had a few years, a few difficult years as well. Then it goes through the Corofin years, but overall, look at the guys put it together really well. I wasn't sure how it would turn out, and I suppose I was a little bit anxious that I would tick all the boxes and I suppose keep everybody happy. But yeah, look, they did a super job, and we'll see what the public think of it now.
Well, your neighbour Gary Syce, of course, is now working with TG Car because he's fluent in the Gaeilge, being the moonshore that he is. Did you venture into using any cúpla focal during Eyrecourt?
No, I left that to the moonshore. No, look, yeah, Syce, look, I'm so thankful to everybody that contributed to the show. Gary, of course, and he's well able to talk Irish, and Mike Meehan, who's a good buddy of mine, and my wife Emer, of course, and Stephen Rochford, and Maureen Brennan, the Milltown woman like yourself. So from Milltown. So yeah, look at they spoke really kind words, and I'm hugely grateful to them.
Yeah, you're nearly getting embarrassed here telling me about what they say about you, but it does get into the personal lives of people, and you're a private sort of a fella. It's not too often over the years we've interviewed you, but at the same time, you've never been short of or shy of coming away and talking to us, especially after the great days we've had with Galway and Corofin. Were you anyways uncomfortable about some of the stuff maybe that they asked you to do in terms of looking into the man behind the man?
Yeah, I suppose, look, at one thing, what the guys in Edmonton, what they wanted, they weren't really concerned about, how many medals you were lucky enough to win or how many matches or whatever. They're really, and I suppose what makes it a success is that they really dig a little bit deeper into, the background of the player and where they're from, and I suppose stuff that wouldn't be common knowledge. And I suppose you have to have the people that are taking part in it have to be open to give that information. So I knew that if I was going to do it, I would have to be as open and honest as possible. And yeah, it was tough, and it brought back some tough memories, and but it was nice at the same time. And look, it's common knowledge. I had lost my raid in the late or mid noughties, and it was a great opportunity, and it gave me a great platform to speak fondly of her again. And I jumped at the opportunity.
Of course, they also would, I'm sure, have followed you into the Garda station in Ballinrobe, where you're based. I mean, how did the Garda thing come about with you, Kieran? Was it just a spur of the moment, or had you any inclination that when you were going to school you wanted to be a guard?
I suppose there's a history of the job in my family. I have uncles that are Gardaí across the country, and my brothers and I have two brothers, members of on Garda Síochána, and actually my sister. So there's four of us all together. So we contributed a bit to on Garda Síochána, but I suppose it was always in the back of my head, and you know there was a great association between the guards and the GAA down through the years, and you can think of the likes of Matt Connor. I remember, like he was a Garda super footballer. You had Pete Finnerty, who was a Garda, Paddy O'Shea, those guys, so it was just something that I liked, and I liked the idea all the way through when I was in secondary school, the idea of being a Garda, and also look at Stone Mad GAA. So for me it was something that I did want to pursue.
Yeah, it was I got thinking of the Kilkenny hurler in secondary school, where he's more or less told he's going to be a guard or a teacher to make sure that they're around and able to play. It did help you, though, the fact that you got based locally, and you didn't have a huge commute for the most part of your playing career as regards your working career.
No, for sure. Look, I spent initially I was posted in Drogheda, and I spent a bit of a while up there, and then I was transferred to Athlone, and I was there for 12 years, and it was local to Caltra, and it was local to it was only an hour down the road to Lough George, and the motorway was open at that stage, so I did do the hour commute, but and then I got a transfer to South Mayo, and that basically covered my Currafin years in my 30s. So yeah, look, they were usually supportive. Like, there's a great link between the guards and the GAA, and they gave me every opportunity to pursue that, so I am grateful to that.
Of course, your clubmate Kieran McGrath as well would have been a fellow Garda down there as well, and I'm sure you got to know a lot of the Mayo lads. There must be great banter when it come to championship time, the fact that you'd be there based in Ballinrobe and you're right in the thick of it.
Yeah, of course, it's brilliant, and I suppose, like, the GAA gives you an opportunity, like it's an icebreaker when you're working. The first thing you either talk about is the weather or the GAA. So look, it's usually beneficial from that point of view. And yeah, Kieran McGrath, while he is a teammate of mine or a clubmate of mine, he's also a colleague, and we work together in Ballinrobe, and we make it work down there.
Yeah, and of course recently you got involved as well in the backroom team in Garrymore. I mean, that was caught a few people on the hop as they go, really? I don't know, did it cause a bit of a stir in Currafin as well when they heard about that? So what kind of role are you going to play in that management setup?
Yeah. Look, I don't know how that came about, but yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I jumped at the opportunity. It's a coaching role, and look, they're a successful club. They got to the county semi-final last year, where they were unfortunate to get pipped in the last few minutes by Knockmore. They're usually ambitious, and I'm going to take up a coaching role there and see how we go. And Kieran, of course, is involved as well. So hopefully we can make things work in Garrymore. Look, I'm also, as I say, a Currafin man at the end of the day. So while I've moved away from the senior setup, I'm going to be heavily involved in the under-17. So yeah, I haven't gone away.
A little bit of CV building going on here, I suspect, maybe for down the road. I'm sure you'd love to manage Currafin at some point.
Yeah, sure. Everybody would. Look, I suppose stone mad Currafin, and I can't hide away from that. And yeah, sure, if the opportunity arose down the road, you could only jump at that. But I'll leave it to Kevin Johnson for now, anyway.
So what kind of role do you think that yourself and Kieran together will play with them? I mean, do you take sessions yourself with the guys, or how tactically astute and different is the game now from the Kieran Fitzgerald point of view than when you started out back in the late 90s?
Well, we've just kicked off. We're in the gym at the minute, and we're getting a great response from them. They're working really hard. Yeah, we'll get out into the pitch come late February, March time, and the setup, the league structures and that are a little bit different in Mayo. There's pre-season competitions, and then there's obviously a league without county players, and then obviously the championship comes in September. So we'll be building it up as we go. But yeah, we'll be taking the sessions. We'll be doing our level best with the guys. They're super guys. We've met them all now, and they're usually enthusiastic and committed to football down there, and hoping that we can form a good relationship and see where it goes from there.
I mean, everybody will always look at Coroffin's way of playing football, and immediately anybody in Mayo will be fearful, oh God, here's Fitzy and Gizzy, they're going to turn Gary Moore into a Coroffin side wearing red jerseys. Is it as simple as that, or do you always have to understand, I suppose, the way a different club plays their football?
Of course, like every team has different attributes, and the guys when we were with Coroffin, the style of football we had there suited the players that we had, and certainly I suppose you can't be that naive to go and think that we're going to transfer the style of football Coroffin played into Gary Moore. But yeah, look at as I say, they're a really traditional club. We're usually successful in the late 70s and 80s, a big club in Mayo, and yeah, there's some fantastic footballers down there. I've seen a lot of their games, and as I say, we'll be trying to put our own little stamp on it, but we'll see where that goes.
You talked about Galway. I mean, it's hard to believe that last year was 20 years since the 01 success, and you were so young at that time in terms of getting success, and I'm sure you thought, God, this is easy, this All-Ireland All-Star business, and yet things just petered out. But I'm sure you look back fondly at those years because you just came at the right time.
I suppose it was, I just feel so lucky to have been given the opportunity to join that group of men in the noughties, the year 2000, 99, 2000, 2001, to be, playing with the likes of Porrick, Joyce and Michael Donnellan, Sean DePere, Kevin Walsh, Tomas Mannion, Decky, me, and that's only to name a few. That's, so for the likes of myself, Matty Clancy, Joe Berg and Kieran Comer, Michael Comer, like we're all of that vintage. John O'Mahony gave us the opportunity to join that panel, and, it was just such an amazing time, and very fortunate to have some success at that period. And yeah, look, you can never tell the time. We won an under 21 the year after, and the trends in the grass would say Galway football were going to have a really good period, but unfortunately that wasn't to be. Yes, we won a few county championships through the 2000s, but I suppose for a county like Galway, we would have been looking to progress in the All-Ireland series, and unfortunately we didn't.
What must have been awful frustrating for you, though, is the fact that you had the template with Coroffin built up through the mid-noughties and have maintained it ever since, to go all the way and not just stop at Connacht and win All-Irelands. I'm sure you must have been putting your finger on what were the shortcomings in Galway, and that frustration must have built up within you. Did that have any bearing on you eventually calling time on your county career, or what would you look back on now and think, if only things were done differently?
There was some amazing teams, Tyrone, Kerry, Armagh, around that time as well, and Mayo, of course, so there was some really, really strong teams, and unfortunately, the age profile of our guys, we had the likes of Kevin Walsh, Sean DePere, Tomas Mannion. There was a lot of players that left the squad after 2001, 2002. So yeah, there was transition, and we just didn't match up with the likes of Tyrone, who won 3 All-Irelands in that period. Kerry won 2, Armagh won 1. So, and the Dubs, of course, were coming towards the end of it. So yeah, we just struggled in that time. It didn't really have a huge bearing on my reasons to retire. It'll be in later Gale my reasons for retiring, and they were really of a personal nature, really.
Yeah. But yet the club did give you that outlet. I mean, you were getting more than enough football with Coroffin because you were going deep into the championship practically every single year. And in one sense, I suppose, when you get into your 30s, it's very hard to keep both going in the modern game, county and club.
That is very true. I struggled with injury towards the latter stages of my Galway career, and I suppose, yes, Corofin were getting to the latter stages of a lot of championships. I suppose, like when I left the inter-county scene, it did give me an opportunity to fix a few problems that I had injury-wise, and for club football is really strong and really intensive, but it's not as intensive as inter-county. The training that you have to go through to be an inter-county footballer, I didn't have to do that anymore, and it gave me a great opportunity to get injury free, and then progress the rest of my footballing career, and concentrate with Corofin. And like again, I was lucky and fortunate enough that Corofin were really strong at underage during that period, and you had the likes of Michael Farrer, Ronan Steed, Ian Burke, Gary Sice, of course, was established. Kieran McGrath was established. Martin Farrer, Micheál Lundy, just an amazing group of players that came together around that time again. And we got on the road, and we had a few ups and downs. We had a few losses. Bridget's in 2011 was a sore one in Kiltoom. We lost the following championship in the semi-final to Tuam Stars in 2012, and it wasn't looking great. But Stephen Rochester came in 2013-14, and we didn't really look back for the following 7 or 8 years.
I think back to that 2011 game in Kiltoom, and it reminded me then what happened to Montbellier Mullagh in their Connacht semi-final. That awful frustration where you feel that sense of injustice, that you've been done out of it by a referee. And I'm sure you saw those Montbellier lads and you shook your head as if to say, lads, I know all about that.
That game in Kiltoom, it hurt us definitely, because it was in Kiltoom. It was a really tight game. It was actually a really memorable game to play in. The atmosphere was super. It was a full house at a club ground against a really strong Bridges team. But a few decisions, and in hindsight, a few decisions did go against us, but we still had the opportunity to remedy that during the game, and we didn't. And on mature reflection, when you think back on it, a few decisions didn't go our way, but we had the ability and the capabilities to manage that situation during that game. And we learned an awful lot from that, Ollie, that game. And we just, over the next period of time, or over the following years, we made a conscious decision not to put ourselves in that position again. Be more ruthless on the pitch with scores. When you get opportunities, take scores. Don't leave a game hanging in the balance where a decision or two could swing it in your favour, or sadly not, as the case may be. And I can totally understand the Mount Bellew guys' frustrations as well. It was a tough loss.
So you think that might be something that in time they can reflect on as well, and it might improve their standings in the years to come?
Yeah, possibly. That's what happened with us. And I don't know the Mount Bellew guys personally, but they all seem like high performing footballers who they're really, really talented. And I'd imagine on reflection in the next few years they will possibly be thinking the same way, and I'm sure there'll be huge learnings from that down the road for them as well.
Nobody's played more senior championship matches ever in Galway than Kieran Fitzgerald, well over 100. But are there any games in particular, or one that you could pinpoint and say, oh God, I really enjoyed that game? Most probably you won it. But when you look back at all the games and all the county finals, and it might even be an earlier round championship victory, you've had some incredible battles, even with your near neighbours Carlastrand, and you can see the border literally a couple of miles from here. When you think back, it might be an unfair question, but can you think back on your top 3 games, or the ones that kind of stick out in your mind?
Yeah, when you mentioned Carlastrand there, we had 2 county semi-finals. I think that went to replays with Carlastrand in maybe 08-09 time, and Carlastrand had opportunities to win those games those days, and we managed to stay in the game and win the replays. Carlastrand were strong at that time. We had a great county final in 2011 against Tuam, and look, we were fortunate enough to be successful in those county finals against Tuam. But in fairness to Tuam Stars, they always brought a great atmosphere to county finals, and they were games that I really enjoyed, not only because we won, but because of what Tune Stars brought to those games as well, and massive support, and they were really enjoyable games. We were so fortunate to win some of those games, as we all know, and then there was the All-Ireland semi-final against St. Vincent's was, I do believe, was a real turning point for Corofin GA club. Bar the All-Ireland in 1998, we had got to a few All-Ireland semi-finals in between, and we weren't successful. We were beaten by Kilmacud, St. Gall's, possibly games we could have won, but we didn't for whatever reason. And to get over the line against the All-Ireland champions St. Vincent's at the time was really satisfying, and look at it, set us on the road to win that championship against Lochneil.
We mentioned at the start of the interview, Léarca Gael, we'll mention it again at the finish, because family is so important to you as well, and I know they're all so proud of you, your mum and dad and all your siblings, and of course Emer Flaherty, who a lot of people would know from the ladies football as well, and indeed on Galway Bay FM. So I'm sure you got great support as well from within your own tight circle of family.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're playing football into your late 30s, you have to have support behind you. And Emer, my wife, has been so supportive down through the years. And I was never told that I was never told to give it up, and it was always my decision to keep going. And whatever I decided, Emer was behind me all the way. And of course, she played for Galway for many years as well. And look, it's part of our DNA, as they say. If we're not watching matches, we're going to matches. So look, it's without that support, family, my parents, my wife Emer, look, it'd be hard to keep going.
Fitzy, thanks a million for chatting to us.
No problem, Ronnie, thanks.
Over the Line Extra, your weekly Galway GAA podcast with Ollie Turner and Sean Walsh.